previous chapter, the protagonist received a mythical tier item, an enchanted divine earring, that allows him to morph at will, and a new skill called Rending Blade, which enhances his attack and debuffs the target with bleeding. And since Wu Yu recognized his worth, she invited him to her secret realm, the Blood Moon City's evolutionary pool, where individuals can break through their own bloodline attributes. However, while Slayer was using the pool, the City Lord's Black Death Guard arrived to summon Wu Yu to the main city immediately, and she couldn't disobey them due to the City Lord's blood summon decree, so she joined the guards and left Slayer alone. However, it turned out to be a setup, as the Shadow Squad ambushed Slayer before he could finish his evolution. Slayer, however, proved to be faster and more skilled than they anticipated, successfully completing his evolution and defeating the assassins effortlessly. After he was done, Wu Yu returned, and revealed that this was all planned by Zhuang, to which Slayer realized she knew about it from the start, so he then concluded that leaving him with the assassins was her second test, which she confirmed, and since she is satisfied with his performance, she was willing to do anything he wishes. But Slayer is a man of focus, commitment and sheer fucking will, and so he asked about the whereabouts of Hanny Xiao. Unfortunately, Wu Yu could only deliver the sad news that his brother was already gone. Now on to the next part. Upon hearing the devastating news, Slayer was so shocked that he fell silent. However, his desire to know what had happened to his brother pushed him to ask Wu Yu for more details. To his surprise, Wu Yu reminded him that this was his second question according to their earlier agreement, but seeing how he was trembling, Wu Yu understood the importance of this matter to him, and so, she agreed to answer his questions but first wanted to know why he was so interested in her previous disciple, to which Slayer explained that it is because he is his big brother, and as he shared this, he began to reminisce about the day he had first met him. In the orphanage, whose name he couldn't recall, children would play every day while hoping to be adopted. Unfortunately, those without parents were often targets of bullying, and so, a group of older teenagers had decided to torment kids like Lu Li and Ah Fei, and it seems they have already been beaten up by these trash of a human being. However, these bullies didn't stop at physical harm, as they discovered that the rabbit they held was the last memento from a poor child's mother. With this, they decided to be even more malicious, taunting Lu Li and Ah Fei over it. Then it was soon revealed that the leader of the bullies was the legitimate son of the orphanage's owner. This entitled trash of a mentality made him believe that he could do anything he pleased, asserting ownership over everything and everyone in the orphanage, as if they were his playthings. This included tearing apart the stuffed rabbit in front of Ah Fei, a cruel act that Lu Li couldn't allow, since he knew that it would deeply hurt Ah Fei if his last memory with his mom got destroyed in front of him. So he was even willing to go John Wick on them, taking out a pencil to kill the bully before they broke Ah Fei's toy. Fortunately for Lu Li, Hanny Xiao suddenly appeared, and beat the living shit out of them with a broom, which the bullies couldn't even fight back, and so they just run away while their tails tucked between their legs. With the bullies gone, Hanny Xiao's warm smile illuminated their world, as if it had transformed from black and white to vibrant color. He then introduced himself and declared his commitment in protecting them from that moment on. With such warm memories of Hanny Xiao in his heart, Slayer expressed that Hanny Xiao is his closest family. This prompted Wu Yu to recall how Hanny Xiao used to ask her for simple equipment, explaining that he had 2 younger brothers and believed it was his duty as the older sibling to provide the best for them. Understanding Slayer's deep connection to his disciple, Wu Yu mentioned a place called Infernal Purgatory, but this just confused Slayer, as he doesn't have a clue to what she said, so he asks to clarify, to which she realized that it would be best to start from the beginning, and so she explained that it all began after Hanny Xiao had successfully defended his title as the Stormcloud King by defeating the King of Knights, Daegu Dan. This extraordinary victory marked Hanny Xiao's 10th consecutive win and firmly established his reputation as a legendary figure. And just like usual, Hanny Xiao entered the Stormcloud catastrophe, but this time was different. He didn't return even though 4 hours had passed, which was odd because the event had already concluded, and according to the usual protocol, participants should be forcibly sent back when the event ends. However, there was no sign of Hanny Xiao. With this, Wu Yu grew increasingly concerned, so she uses everything at her disposal, and searched everywhere for him. But even with her efforts, It still took her a long time before she found out that the last place Hanny Xiao entered in was called the Infernal Purgatory, and since she knows the location, Slayer asked why she didn't simply go there to find him, to which Wu Yu explained that she couldn't, as there was an unknown force blocking access to that realm, preventing her from teleporting there or intervening in any way. With this challenge ahead, Slayer racked his brain for a solution, but to no avail, and so he decided to reach out to Double C, asking her to search for relevant information about the Infernal Purgatory. To his dismay, as she attempted to access this information, she started to bug out, and shortly after, a system notification popped up, indicating an error. Faced with this setback, Slayer had no choice but to delve into the database himself, which Double C informed him that he didn't have the necessary privileges. But Slayer doesn't give a fuck. He knew the ins and outs of creating this game, so he was confident in his ability to bypass these restrictions, as he switched to the manual input interface, while Wu Yu on the other hand was just standing there on the side, dumbfounded as she was clueless on what Slayer was mumbling about. And as Slayer entered the secret codes, he made an effort to calm himself down, as he realized that he couldn't afford to be hasty when he is so close to potentially finding his brother. And the timeline of his brother's last appearance in the game and when he went offline seemed to align perfectly, strengthening Slayer's conviction that the Infernal Purgatory held the answers he sought, so he can't afford messing up. Soon after he bypassed the system, gaining access to the database, which immediately led him in a sea of floating codes. He then opened a system tab to retrieve the code for the Infernal Purgatory. To his surprise, as he entered the word, system errors began to pop up. It even warned him that if he continued, it would be considered an illegal intrusion, and so he would be forcibly ejected from the system. Still, he couldn't accept it, so he commanded the system to open the source code, but to his dismay, this action seemed to worsen everything, as the source code started to be overwritten, which should have been impossible, so this left him dumbfounded. But before he could find answers, he was in the process of being forcibly ejected. And just like that, he returned to where Wu Yu was, and it seems like she didn't notice his sudden disappearance, as she just proceeded with their conversation as if nothing had happened, telling Slayer that what she had said was all she knew, and if he didn't believe her, he should go and find out for himself, so it looked like Slayer didn't have a choice but to go there himself. However, before he did that, he asked Wu Yu if she would be willing to do him another favor, to which she clarified that this would be his third request. So it seemed like he wouldn't get anything more from her for the time being. To his surprise, Wu Yu had a change of heart and permitted him to tell her what it was. Therefore Slayer didn't think twice to ask her for directions on how to get to the other realm. To which she responded that the only method she knew was the Stormcloud Catastrophe, which he had just finished, and it had a time restriction involved as well, so it wouldn't be the best method. And since he was her new disciple, Wu Yu expressed some worry about him, pointing out that he was being a bit impatient. Even Hanny Xiao had awakened twice in the evolution blood pool and still couldn't come back, not to mention his current state. However, Slayer couldn't hear her, as he was deep in thought, since he couldn't just stand still when he was so close to finding his brother. Fortunately, he didn't have to figure it out himself, as Double C informed him that she knew a method to return to the other side, and he just needed to follow her. Therefore, Slayer followed Double C. But Wu Yu was clueless about where he was going, since she couldn't hear nor see Double C, so she asked Slayer about it, to which he explained that he had found a way to go to the player's world, but this confused her even more, prompting Slayer to clarify that it was the realm she always called the other side, which immediately piqued her interest, as she wondered how he knew about this, but she could see that Slayer was in a hurry, so she decided to postpone her questions for later and simply waited for good news from him. Meanwhile, in the player's realm, a massive explosion erupted amidst the trees, resulting in the demise of a group of moth-like monsters, and the one responsible for this fiery display was none other than Afe, who had now reached level 23 as a firestorm mage. Along with his fiery prowess, he seemed to have attracted the attention of a few girls who found him hot as well, swarming around him like moths drawn to a flame. And Afe was enjoying the attention he was receiving from the girls, since he is a man of culture after all, and with the girls near him, he was more than happy to feel their soft company. Still, he can't let himself be seen as a pervert, so he shifted the conversation, inquiring if the high-paying equipment merchant they had mentioned earlier was nearby. which the girls confirmed its proximity, and Ah Fei continued his journey enthusiastically, looking forward to meet this merchant they specially recommended. He even promised the girls that he would treat them to new pieces of equipment after completing his transactions. However, as Ah Fei ventured deeper into the woods, he became aware of a group of players blocking his path, and suddenly, players appeared from all directions, surrounding them. It was clear that this group had nefarious intentions, and they even referred to him as their scapegoat. With this, he quickly instructed the girls to stay behind him and prepared his magic. However, to his dismay, the girls he was trying to protect revealed their true colors as they simultaneously backstabbed him, both literally and figuratively. With this, question filled his mind, as to why these girls did him dirty like that. He was even so considerate to give them items and split the money, so their betrayal doesn't make sense to him. However, his questions were swiftly answered in the most unexpected manner, as he overheard the girls being referred to as brother by their guildmates. To his astonishment, it turned out that these three apparent beauties from the North Guild were, in fact, guys in real life all along. This revelation filled Ah Fei with anger, not because of the betrayal of his wealth, but because it was about the betrayal of his trust and feelings, and this newfound motivation compelled him to stand up once more and teach these deceivers a lesson they wouldn't forget. But even before Ah Fei could launch his counterattack, his enemies decided to make the first move, lunging at him. However, Ah Fei proved to be faster than they had anticipated, and so they received a fiery fist that knocked them both down. Suddenly more players were charging at him from behind, but Ah Fei managed to defeat them with a powerful area of effect fire attack. Nevertheless, facing an entire guild in a one versus many situation, he was destined to take some damage, as he didn't see an arrow aimed towards him. Still, he got an insane reaction speed, so he manages to block it in the nick of time. But the battle was far from over, as the cat lady closed in on him, aiming for the kill, but Ah Fei blocked her attack with his abilities. However, it became clear that his mana was running dangerously low, and the problem was, he had already used all of his potions while leveling earlier, and he even gave some of them to those ladyboys, so it was only a matter of time before he would be defeated. And seeing that he was now on the edge, the enemies made it clear that they were after the equipment he had obtained from the limited-time boss. So, before he could do anything stupid, they warned him that their guild had already surrounded the area, and if he didn't cooperate, they would guard his corpse until he dropped the last piece of equipment he had. This was a well-thought-out plan on their part, as characters who died in the wilderness would revive with low health in the same spot after some time, and they would also randomly drop their equipped items and lose some of their experience points upon death. Frustrated, Ah Fei let out a deep sigh, before proceeding to mock every member of their guild, insulting them with every insult he had learned since birth. Even the birds couldn't handle the bars that came out from his mouth. With this, the white-haired dude was immediately triggered, and so he was about to kill Ah Fei on the spot, while Ah Fei on the other hand, couldn't do anything but apologize to his second brother for not protecting the wealth he had entrusted to him. He was deeply regretful for being deceived by scammers. But just before the white-haired guy's attack could land, a shadow abruptly materialized at his rear, and it seemed like Ah Fei was about to receive a double blow. However, to everyone's surprise, the new arrival was actually targeting the white-haired guy, dealing a fatal blow that killed him instantly, and this mysterious figure turned out to be none other than Slayer, who had transformed into a human using his earrings, and Slayer was seething with anger at the way these players had bullied his brother, and so, he looks at them with his devious side eye, and vowed that not a single one of them would leave that place unscathed.